Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the mirror tool from the BTH Custom tools. You can find this tool and any other tools I create in the Ylands forums, and I'll leave a link in the description to the exact page. Firstly, let's look at where you would need to use this kind of tool. Let's take a look at this greenhouse. Say we want to duplicate the side and the roof to the other side. We can select, duplicate and rotate, and then reposition it. We don't need the mirror tool here. We could use it, but it's a bit easier to just do that. However, if we look at this bow tile here, which is created by Yoha's Lego, a very talented builder, it's only one side, and we're going to need the other side. We can try, select it, duplicate, and find some rotation. But any axis you rotate around is going to cause problems. You can try that for yourself, and there's not going to be a single one that works. You might think, well, let's take each layer separately and do that. And we can see it works quite well for the first layer. Just this little block here is a problem, but that could easily be fixed manually. As we go lower, however, you'll find that you run into the same problem. Where curves are more extreme and more organic, you get there's no axis again that you can rotate around. So to fix this, we'll need to use the mirroring tool. I'm going to demonstrate the mirroring tool with multiple different groups of entities over here. Let's start with this hull, which is all in separate entities. If we look at the mirror tool in the properties, past the description, you'll find these properties down here. The first thing we need is a reference game logic. One of the easier ones to use is a reference point. If we place that down here, I'm going to turn on local coordinates so that we can see which way it's faced. The mirror tool is going to mirror over the XY plane. That's the plane formed by the red arrow and the green arrow. So we want to rotate it in this orientation so that the plane is orientated in this way. The other way to see this is to look at the arrow from the reference point, and that should be facing at your object. If you're struggling to visualize the plane, one thing that's quite nice to do is get a trigger zone, set this to a block, and scale down the blue axis to 0. You can scale other ones as well, and here we can see that this is now the plane you would be mirroring over. So let's go back to our tool, scroll down, and using the eyedropper over here, we're going to select either one of those. Then you're going to select all the entities you want to mirror, and you're going to play the tool. This one's nice and simple. You don't actually need to mess with any of these things over here. A lot of the basic building blocks will get mirrored perfectly. But this display here, you'll be able to cycle through every unique entity in the build. What you need to make sure is that this blue plane over here, which I'm going to call a symmetry plane, is orientated in such a way that the entity is symmetrical around it. In other words, the entity is the exact same on either side of the plane. So if I were to rotate it like that, you can see it's not symmetrical around it. And you're going to see that here, like this block doesn't look right because it's not symmetrical about the plane. So we can just leave them all like this. They happen to be symmetrical. We'll go over this in more detail soon, and we'll just finalize that. So there's our hull, all nicely mirrored. You can take it and connect it up with the other one. This is a catamaran hull, that's why it's quite thin. Next, I'm going to show you how the mirroring tool works with groups. I'm going to bring the plane over to this one over here, and you can see that it's broken up into separate groups. The mirroring tool works with entities, groups, and game logics. However, it does not work with entity worlds. And I've snuck one in here. If you edit the group, you can see that that's an entity world. It's not going to work, but I want to show you what will happen if we do that. If we want to select groups, it's the same process. I have the reference game logic selected here. It's this one, trigger zone 3. And we can select a parent group. So these are all children to this parent group over here. I can still play the tool, and you see things will get copied across. It looks like I'm missing one of the children here. But if you notice this pink block here, that's because of a entity world. If you have a pink block, you need to get rid of your entity world. So let's do that quickly. If we hop in here and edit the group, we can unworld entities, and that should be fine. I think one of these might not have a parent. It looks like it does. Let's try this again. Select this and mirror. Do seem to be missing one of those. One thing we can do is just select all. There we go. And yeah, so it works with groups. The other thing you can do is, say you have a parent, but you don't want to include all of the children. You can go into the properties and select exclude child groups. If we play this, you can see it'll only do the parent group. Let's look at an example where we have to edit the symmetry plane. Here I've made a section of a roof. I'm going to select all the entities and play the script. You can see that things aren't looking so great over here, and that's because we need to change some of the symmetry planes. We can see that this block is symmetric around the symmetry plane. This one, however, is not. We're going to have to rotate around the y-axis like so. You can see now that those blocks here are all sorted, and we just need to fix this block like that. And there we have everything perfect. If you're struggling to understand the symmetry planes, I'm going to do another video showing me doing mirroring this whole airship over here, and you'll get to see more examples of the symmetry plane. But for now, we can just confirm that, and we have the other side of our roof. You could also have placed this mirror tool right up against here. I'll show you that quickly actually. Just get rid of these. And you can see that, quickly do these ones again. You can see that it makes the roof perfectly there. We don't need to bring it together. One of the nice features about the mirror tool is that you can mirror whole groups. So if we have this arrangement of gongs over here, we can select everything and press the mirror tool. But you can see we've got 1 out of 9 objects. That's not too many to go through manually and change the symmetry plane. However, we could make that a lot quicker. If we go here and select mirror groups, we shouldn't have exclude child groups on anymore, and play this, you'll see that it shows the whole group of this gong. This gong, by the way, was made by Crystal. This only works with groups that are symmetrical, and we need to find that symmetry plane here. I think if we rotate around the x-axis, we're getting some interesting results. Sorry, I had a little brain fart there. I don't want to re-record this whole thing, so I'm just going to fix it as we go. When you are mirroring whole groups, you need to do each group separately, even if they're all identical. Unfortunately, I cannot do too much about that. So we'd have to set the first gong, then the second gong, and the third gong. But that's a little easier than going through each unique entity of the object. You can also see that currently the impassable barriers that are put on top here to stop players jumping on them are not mirrored in their shape and size. There's currently an Ylands bug that's preventing me from doing that, but hopefully by the time you get a hold of this tool, that will be fixed. Also, while we're here, I just want to quickly demonstrate a couple features of the tool. This button here with the X to it hides the axes, so the red, yellow, and the red, green, and blue axes on the item here. And you can also collapse this whole window if you want to have a look around. So let's finalize that and move on. I just quickly want to go over a few anomalies and constraints of the tool. Let's look at this other hull here, also created by Yoha's Lego. If we try mirror this over the plane, we firstly need to set the axis to be orientated like that. You can see at first glance it looks perfect, but if we look closer, you'll notice that there are these funny seams in it, and you don't have that on the other side. This is caused by a problem with the entity that is created out of, which is the traffic sign. If you look extremely closely, you'll notice that the corners don't quite line up with the grid. We can fix this by when we play the tool, we can rotate, and you can change the increment size here. The increment size changes how much things are rotated by. You can make this very small, you can do decimals, and you can do slight rotations. I think I went the wrong way. You can see it's getting slightly better there. This is something you'll just have to fiddle around with if you want it to be exactly perfect. The other limitations include objects that aren't symmetrical. So say this energy workbench. You're not going to find a single plane that makes this thing symmetrical, but you'll be able to find ones that are close. Let's see if we can find some examples. So something that might work well is if we had the symmetry plane orientated like this. That would work quite well. We wouldn't want to do something like this, because it would just flip it upside down. Same with this cabinet over here. I think a symmetry plane like that would give pretty good results. Your mirrored version would just look like this. The handle isn't perfect, but there's nothing we can do about that. The other thing are objects, and bear with me, this is a little tricky to explain, where the center of the bounding box does not line up with the center of the object. So you can see the pivot of this pizza slice is actually in the center of the pizza. However, if we look at the bounding box, this yellow one, its center is somewhere over here. And because the center doesn't match up with the center of the pizza, you're going to have problems trying to mirror that. I would like to add a feature that would allow you to adjust this, but that will take a bit of time to do, and there are very few objects that are actually like that. So that's about it for the mirroring tool. I think it's very versatile, and it's quite powerful. You can do things that otherwise aren't possible. If you're still struggling to understand the symmetry plane, you can watch the video of me mirroring this whole airship that I created. And I'll also link another video by JB Business where he uses it in his Ylands world, and you can see a real life application of it. Thanks for watching. I hope it helps.